Hello doll fans and welcome back to Beauty Inside a Box. Today we're talking about Barbie going to court. Barbie and her many lawsuits. I'm not going to talk about Barbie versus Bratz because I made a whole video about the Barbie versus Bratz lawsuit. If you want to watch that video, I'll put a link on the screen and somewhere in the description. But while I was researching for that video, I discovered loads of other occasions where Barbie went to court, where Mattel, the creator of Barbie, took other companies to court for copyright infringement. So we're going to talk about some of the most crazy and highly publicized times that Barbie took other companies to court. But I just want to say that this is all research I've done online, so, take it with a grain of salt. It might not be 100% accurate. Everything I say is alleged. And also, if you love dolls as much as I do, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you're new here. Check me out on Instagram and TikTok. And also consider supporting me on Patreon. I have loads and loads of exclusive videos on my Patreon, and I'm making new ones all the time. Supporting me starts from just $3, so I'd really appreciate it. But now, let's talk about Barbie going to court. Especially in the 90s and early noughties, Mattel's lawyers were lethal and would aggressively sue anyone that even came close to infringing on Barbie's copyright. I feel like since everything that happened with Bratz and also the advent of social media and the internet, Mattel's lawyers have softened a little bit because aggressively suing your competitors and smaller businesses, it's not a good look. And nowadays, people would discuss stuff like that a lot online. So Mattel has definitely softened quite a lot since the mid-2000s. But in the 90s and in the mid-2000s, oh my goodness, the Mattel lawyers were like their guard dogs. Even though Mattel would often take companies and creators to court for infringing on Barbie's copyright, quite often Barbie's image would fall under fair use. Basically, copyrighted material is allowed to be used without the permission of the copyright holder if it is transformative enough. For example, if it is being used for educational purposes or as a critique, as part of a review, for example, or a parody, or for a news report. Which leads us into our first court case, Barbie versus Aqua. So, in 1997, Danish pop group Aqua released the iconic 90s song, Barbie Girl.
Hiya, Barbie.
Hi, Ken.
You wanna go for a ride?
Sure, Ken.
Jump in.
When I was a kid and I didn't know any better, I actually did think that this was an official Barbie song. Did anyone else think this was an official Barbie song? I didn't realize at the time that it was kind of making fun of Barbie's shallow image and turning her into a kind of adult fantasy. But anyway, the song was a top 10 hit around the world that year, and Aqua sold over 8 million copies of their album. I think the song mostly just reaffirmed Barbie's status as a cultural icon. Overall, I don't think the song was bad for Barbie's image, is what I'm saying. But Mattel sued Aqua and the music company that produced the song. They asked the court for an injunction to block the song, saying it tarnished Barbie's image. It is believed that Mattel was trying to use a tactic they often used around the time, which is known as litigate to death, in which they use an army of lawyers to drive their opponents into the ground. Mattel couldn't sue Aqua for copyright infringement because Barbie's image wasn't used and no Barbie dolls were used in the music video. But they could try and sue for the unauthorized use of the word Barbie, which is a trademark. The main problem with Mattel's claim was that Aqua never tried to mislead the audience into thinking the song was an official Barbie song. The song was clearly a parody and therefore would fall into fair use. Interestingly enough, Mattel eventually ended up using the Aqua Barbie Girl song in a fashionista advert in around 2009.
Are you a girly girl or an artsy girl? Cutie girl or a sassy girl?
They also sampled it for a song in the Barbie movie soundtrack in 2023.
And I'm bad like the Barbie. I'm a doll, but I still wanna party.
So it seems Mattel has a good relationship with Aqua and the song these days. Also in the world of music, in 2010, Patricia Day, the lead singer of the band Horror Pop, filed a lawsuit against Barbie for using her likeness for a hard rock doll. I have to say, they do look very similar. The case was apparently settled out of court. Barbie versus Nicki Minaj. Now let me just be very, very clear. Mattel didn't actually file a lawsuit against Nicki Minaj, but they did file a lawsuit in 2022 against the snack company Rap Snacks for their Nicki Minaj themed crisps, which were called Barbie Q Honey Truffle Potato Chips. It's funny because I'm sure a lot of Nicki Minaj fans would see something that said Barbie on it and think of Nicki Minaj, but if you're not like in the Nicki Minaj world, Barbie just means the Barbie doll. Basically, if you're unaware, Nicki Minaj often refers to herself as Barbie, and her fans are even called Barbs. Rap Snacks were definitely playing a very dangerous game. They even used a very similar font to the Barbie logo on the packaging for their potato chips. I don't know how this lawsuit ended, but it appears that Rap Snacks have changed the name and the packaging of their Nicki Minaj themed crisps since 2022, and they have completely removed any reference to Barbie. Barbie versus Steffi Love. In 2004, Mattel filed a lawsuit against Simba Toys because they said Steffi Love was exploiting the good reputation of their Barbie doll. At first, Mattel filed a lawsuit against Simba for their My Style dolls, claiming that they were too similar to their My Scene dolls, which I definitely have to agree they are very similar. And Mattel won the case, and Simba had to pay Mattel £450,000 in attorney fees. The success of this court case probably gave Mattel the confidence to go after Steffi Love. However, Germany's Federal Court of Justice ruled against Mattel, stating that the concept of a doll with accessories could not be copyrighted and that some similarities were inevitable. Steffi Love was introduced in 1989 and in Germany and the rest of Europe has been a serious rival to Barbie, and she's often a less expensive alternative to Barbie. I definitely do think that Steffi and Barbie are very similar, and Steffi is probably aiming for a similar demographic as Barbie, but competition in the toy industry is important, and fundamentally Mattel can't copyright the concept of a blonde hair fashion doll. Well, they can try. Barbie versus Cindy. In 1989, while Cindy was being produced by Hasbro, Mattel filed a lawsuit against Hasbro because they believed Cindy's design was infringing on their intellectual property and was too similar to Barbie's design. Apparently, they even measured a Barbie doll and a Cindy doll's hips, waist, chest and legs in court to try and prove their point. They were especially focused on Cindy's head mold, saying it was too similar to Barbie's. The dolls they used for comparison in court, they shaved their heads so that they could get a really good look at their head molds. The lawsuit was dropped after Hasbro agreed to modify Cindy's head shape to distinguish it from Barbie's. Barbie versus Miss America. Okay, this one is wild. In 1991, the toy company Kenner released a line of Miss America-themed dolls. There were 5 different characters in the line, including Devon, Tonya, Blair, Justine, and Raquel. Mattel sued Kenner and the Miss America organization over Kenner's Miss America dolls, claiming they infringed on Mattel's Barbie doll copyright. Mattel even had a shipment of dolls imported from China detained by the US Customs on suspicion of copyright infringement. Mattel was only claiming copyright infringement on 3 of the characters, Devon, Tonya, and Blair. But since all 5 characters were packaged together, Justine and Raquel were also held as well. Kenner and the Miss America organization then sued Mattel, seeking a declaration that their dolls did not infringe, and an injunction to prevent Mattel from interfering with their importation. Ultimately, a court ruled against Kenner and the Miss America organization. The dolls were not released, and Mattel's copyright was upheld. I mean, this is crazy. The dolls are quite similar to Barbie, but You know, they just look like kind of standard fashion dolls. I feel like something like this wouldn't happen today. I have seen the Miss America dolls on eBay, so they must have been released eventually, but this is crazy. Barbie versus the Rockettes. To celebrate the millennium, Radio City Music Hall released a fashion doll based on its popular Rockettes. Mattel once again filed a copyright infringement lawsuit. Once again, they focused on the dolls' faces, saying they were too similar to Barbie's face. Specifically, they said that the doll copied the face of the Bob Mackie Neptune Fantasy Barbie from 1992 and the CEO Barbie from 1999. The court concluded that the features in question, while probably copied, were not protected by copyright because they were common to youthful females. Barbie versus art. Many artists have used Barbie's likeness to create their own art. Barbie is so iconic and so intrinsically tied to American culture that, of course, artists are going to want to use her likeness to create kind of subversive art. In 1997, Tom Forsythe, an artist from Utah, created a series of photos called Food Chain Barbie, which showed Barbie in blenders and like in quesadillas and stuff like that. I do like the one where Barbie's in a cocktail glass. I really like that one. I want that. At first, the collection didn't get much attention, but in 1999, Mattel decided to file a lawsuit. They even subpoenaed a museum that was displaying the collection, but this resulted in a sanction against Mattel for overreaching and using intimidation tactics. The American Civil Liberties Union decided to take up the case as a defense of free speech. They secured one of the nation's most prominent intellectual property trial attorneys, Annette Hurst. A decade later, Annette would actually become one of the litigators on MGA's defense team when Mattel sued Bratz. After several years of appeals, a federal judge instructed Mattel to pay Tom Forsythe's legal fees and other costs of more than $2 million. They called the lawsuit groundless, objectively unreasonable, and frivolous. They said it is not in the public's interests to allow Mattel complete control over the kinds of artists' work that use Barbie as a reference for criticism or comment. Obviously, Tom's work falls under fair use. The lawsuit actually generated loads of positive press for the Food Chain Barbie collection because people believed that Mattel was infringing on Forsythe's free speech. Tom Forsythe had this to say about the whole process. From what I've learnt in the course of defending my very basic free speech rights, this is a fairly standard cost for fighting a legal battle in federal court. It only confirms what I've always sensed, that the legal system is little more than a fighting ring for the rich, with the common people not even invited to experience the proceedings on pay-per-view. We may be free to express ourselves, but if that expression involves offending a rapacious corporation, they're equally free to sue. And unless we have the wherewithal to fight off high-powered attorneys, that's where our free speech ends. In the end, the lawsuit actually increased the attention and value of the Food Chain Barbie collection. In 1998, an artist called Paul Hansen of San Francisco sold 150 modified Barbies as artworks. His modified Barbies had kind of comical adult themes. They gained some popularity when apparently Madonna bought some. He made a profit of around $2,000. Then Mattel sued for damages of $1.2 billion. Hansen's young attorney apparently went to Mattel's attorneys in court and said, "Your Honor, we all know what this case is about. Your client has no sense of humour. That's what this is about." Apparently, that same day, Mattel agreed to forego damages in return for a promise that Hansen would not sell any more of his modified Barbies. "This has been the year from hell," the artist said. Poor Paul. Barbie versus sex. In 2005, Mattel started a lawsuit against a small Canadian adult shop which was very popular in the LGBTQ community called Barbie's shop. You can probably see where this is going. It was run by a middle-aged Canadian woman named Barbara who went by the nickname Barbie. Again, it seems like they were trying to intimidate the small business owner for using the word Barbie. Luckily for the small business, the case was dismissed for lack of jurisdiction in Canada. Also, Mattel filed a lawsuit against a couple different adult websites for using the name Barbie. One was called Barbie's Playhouse in 1998, and the other was called Barbie's Playpen in 2000. In 2001, an artist called Susan Pitt made a collection called Dungeon Barbie, in which she placed the heads of real Barbies and Ken dolls onto anatomically correct body molds, which were in suggestive positions. Mattel obviously filed a lawsuit for copyright infringement, but the court decided that Dungeon Barbie was transformative enough to not be confused with the official Barbie products. Obviously. So there we have it, doll fans. There were just a few of the times that Barbie was taken to court. It seems like Barbie spent the whole of the 90s and 2000s in a courtroom. I'm surprised she even had time to be a doctor and an astronaut. But anyway, please let me know what you thought of these different court cases in the comments. Also, don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to my channel if you're new here, check me out on Instagram and TikTok, and also consider supporting me on Patreon. Remember, there are loads of exclusive videos on my Patreon, and have a great week, doll fans. See you soon. Bye. Thank you so much to Siren Kelly, Nicki, Sunny, Bobby and Cheryl, Imani, Tracy, Jico, Patty Heiss, Anna, Jordan, Cynthia, Raina Ray, Petra, Desi, Michael, @dolls_on-the-go, Jasper, Lillian Lish, Michael and Russ, Amber Rodriguez, Natalie, Doreen, Lexi, Jeremy, Shannon, Angelique, Spooky Mama Baker, Vito and Logan, and Sophie. And thank you to all my other Patreon supporters. Your support means everything.